In this video, we'll be showing how to tie what I refer to as a carp nymph. It's just a generic nymph and will be useful for any number of species of fish. This particular pattern I tie on a Mustad Demon circle hook. This happens to be a 1/0 hook that I'm using for the camera. It can be tied on any number of sizes of hooks depending on the size of fly you're wanting to throw. The materials we use are kip tail or calf tail for the tail material, copper wire for the ribbing, a superfine dubbing for the abdomen, Angora goat makes up the thorax, and any type of a quill, goose, or some other kind of feather to be used for the wing casing. We also use this in weighted and unweighted versions. To begin tying the fly again with the hook and the vise, notice this is a circle hook and we also bend the barbs down on this. We believe in fishing barbless for all species of fish. I start by anchoring the thread back in the bend and cut a small section of calf tail, which I then tie on in position at the lowest part of the bend, several good securing wraps, and then wrap that as low down into the bend as possible and cut off the excess kip tail. After the kip tail, a small piece of copper wire can be tied in. This is going to be used for the ribbing. I like to make sure it's nice and secure, so I anchor it pretty well just above the kip tail and leave it hanging out the back. The next step is to add superfine dubbing to your thread. Color, again, is kind of your own preference. I try to stick with the more natural colors, browns, greens. I like the burnt orange and stuff as well on this fly, as we do on our pine squirrel leech as well. And then you can begin to wrap that material. I prefer to get that material tapered, covering approximately half to maybe as much as 2/3 of the hook, but leaving space for the wing case and the Angora goat. So I make it a little thicker in the front than in the back. Once I have that wrapped, take the copper wire and I counter wrap the copper wire around that superfine dubbing. Secure it and cut off the excess wire, and you're ready for the next step. At this point, you're ready to tie in the material for the wing casing. I just use a small piece of material cut off the wing feather of a goose or a peacock, something along that line, a dark colored feather for a wing case material. Lay it in place, tie it in and secure it, and cut off the excess out front. This prepares the fly for the Angora goat, which will be coming up next. When putting in the Angora goat, we use a dubbing loop. So we pull off a little extra thread, bring the thread back up. I bring it to the eye at this point and go ahead and secure the thread, because again we're using a rotating vise. Work the Angora goat between the thread. I like a nice textured material here. It doesn't have to be Angora, but I like the Angora because of the texture. And then rotate that into position. I like the thorax to be fairly covered. I like a lot of texture at this point on the fly. So once you get the Angora in place, again 2 or 3 good securing wraps to lock it in place. Cut off the excess, secure that, and then here I like to make sure that the Angora is kind of worked down and back before I pull over the wing case. Pull the wing case into position. Tie it down. Again, cut off the excess. And build a head with your thread. Again, we use colored thread to indicate whether it's a weighted or unweighted fly. In this case, because the thread is tan, that indicates that it's an unweighted fly. If we tie a weighted version, I usually use black thread. Simple whip finish. You could use head cement if you like, but not necessary. And that's the completed fly. Again, here's an example of the Carp Nymph, both in the weighted and the unweighted version. Really the only difference is that in the weighted version we've used lead-free wire under the thorax material, and I use black thread to indicate that it's weighted, and the unweighted has a tan thread to indicate that it's unweighted. Again, we believe that you need flies that have a sink rate of about a count of 3 to the bottom. So for shallow water, unweighted flies, the deeper the water, the more weight. Still gives you a count of 3 to the bottom and allows you to lead your fish the same no matter what depth of water they're swimming in.